The Thursday, May 8th, 2025 Wytheville Planning Commission meeting is now called to order. We'll establish a quorum, which we have. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and it requires a motion.
So move.
Second.
Okay. And also a roll call vote. Brad?
Aye.
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 Patterson, aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, the consent agenda, which are the minutes of the regular meeting of April the 10th. Requires a motion also.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Next item, public hearing. Public hearing to consider the request of Ms. Donna Leonard for a special exception permit to operate an accounting and tax office on property located at 525 North 4th Street, parcel 41A-1-22-7 in an R2 residential zoning district. Mr. Woods.
All right. Thank you, and to start off with our staff report, as you mentioned, the description of the proposal is to use an existing single-family dwelling as a professional office for accounting and tax services. Looking at the site generally, historically, this house has been used as a dwelling since it was built, according to the tax records, in 1956. The front yard includes a couple of driveway entrances that are lined with some wrought iron fencing, which that historically those were two bridges across Town Branch that runs underneath the front of that parcel. At a later date, the neighbors along that block went in together apparently to put the creek in a culvert, but they preserved those bridges at that particular residence. And currently, the home is for sale, and it's part of an estate sale. That location on North 4th Street, it's one of our busiest thoroughfares in town, with 13,000 average trips per day, according to the VDOT statistics for 2023. And generally, the residents of the dwelling have only used one of the two driveway entrances to get in and out of the property, and they used to have to back out into traffic to get in and out of their home. The neighborhood around the site is all zoned R2. In this particular corridor along 4th Street, roughly between about Spiller Street and West Ridge Road, that area at one point was all zoned R2, and there have been several similar requests, either through a special exception process or through rezoning, to convert some of those parcels to commercial uses. And you can see those listed in the staff report, the location. The most similar request, the only one that was denied, was a professional office at 495 North 4th Street. So that's basically 2 doors down across Pine Street. The Department of Engineering and Public Utilities indicates that utilities that serve the site are adequate for the proposed use. Immediately to the south of the lot is a vacant building lot. And as I mentioned before, the culvert for Cedar Run, or also known as Town Branch, runs below the front of those lots. And there have been other commercial uses approved in that block. And I don't remember exactly where I mentioned it, but the comprehensive plan, the future land use map, recommends that that corridor will transition to a commercial business use of some sort in the future. And so those are all points of information to keep in mind as you consider this particular project. Prior to presenting or preparing this staff report, there was one comment that I received, a person that came in, and they also have provided a written comment that we received a day or two ago, and they're here with us tonight, so I won't read that in case they would like to present it at the public hearing. All right. Generally, professional offices like this are a fairly quiet type of use. As far as the activity, probably wouldn't be particularly disturbing to neighbors, but it would generate traffic and it would create some additional parking spaces in the front of the structure. And so those are factors that you may want to look at as you deliberate on how to act on this request. Based on the current ordinance, the number of parking spaces that they've suggested providing does meet it's exactly at the number of spaces that would be required for this use if it were in another, if it were to be built in a B2, this is the number of spaces, so that meets that. There it is. In the future land use, as I mentioned, it does support conversion of this, the dwellings along the North 4th Street corridor to a commercial use. The proposed site plan doesn't use a single commercial style entrance, but preserves the historic entrances through those wrought iron railings. All right. There are some potential, and back on the entrances, the one thing that the proposal does provide is, since there's an entrance and an exit, it does sort of allow for a loop movement that would prevent vehicles from having to turn around on site and in order to leave. There are some potential conditions that you might want to consider. The number of parking spaces that are provided under our current ordinance would not trigger, this parking lot isn't big enough to trigger the requirement for trees and other landscaping. But being in a residential neighborhood, addition of a couple of trees in the front might help screen the parking from the traffic on 4th Street. Also, in consideration of neighbors for the parking at the rear of the building, for the employee parking, it might be advisable to ask for some evergreen shrubs that would screen, something like an emerald green arborvitae that doesn't get too big, but could provide a fairly dense screen between the backyards of the adjoining properties. The application states that the proposed hours of operation are between 8 and 4 p.m. and this or something similar might be included as recommended limitation on hours of operation. And you might want to add a condition that the parking be striped and marked for ADA spaces and entrance and exit signage, directional arrows, that kind of thing. So those are potential things you might want to consider. You have in that staff report a site plan which shows a little more to-scale version of what the applicant provided to help with delineation of the spaces, and so that you can, as a planning commission, understand it a little better. The client parking would be up front, and in this area, under number 1, those 3 spaces would be for clients. You'd have an entrance at number 3, exit at number 4. Employee parking would be in the back, and then a potential space for an ADA parking space would be up front. I also included some pictures of the site so that you can orient yourself. Those wrought iron fences make a nice little historic feature along the thoroughfare, and so there's probably something to be said for preserving those as the entrance and exit. A little close up in the third photo. Now, the applicant does not own this property yet. She has an agreement of sale. So the condition of the lawn in these pictures would not be her responsibility yet. This is the rear yard, an area that would have to be modified to accommodate that parking. The existing driveway ends at this point, and it'd have to be able to turn to the left to get into the spaces. There's a view looking up the driveway toward that back in photo 6. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about signage, John. What would the signage be for a business like that in the front, or wherever it would be allowed under the signage ordinances?
Well, if it were to fall under the current ordinance, as far as a residential use, the amount of signage that's allowed is very small. I suspect we'd be considering that as part of this, which we probably would want to add in as a condition for approval. Typical, I think the maximum size for a sign on a residential property is about, it's either 1 or 2 feet square.
Right.
Whereas that we'd probably be looking at something more like somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think 16 square feet is sort of the size of one of those real estate signs, or certainly no bigger than 32 square feet, which is basically the size of a sheet of plywood. So somewhere in that range.
Just to keep it small or whatever?
Yeah, it would need to be small, and would need to be located so that as you're coming in and out of the driveways, that you can have a clear sight line both ways down the roadway.
And obviously, there's a lot of traffic that goes up and down that street already. So with this extra traffic that comes through there, I know they said that there's not going to be that much, but with the added traffic, is it a hazard? Or is there any sort of potential of being some sort of hazard for that?
Well, as far as the number of vehicles, it's really more about the turning movements in and out than it is the number of vehicles entering and exiting this lot during a day would really be inconsequential compared to the traffic on the road.
Right.
But it is a tricky place to get in and out of. And so,
I mean, I do like that it can have a way in and a way out to make it safer. But even still, there is a lot of traffic down there. And I think already with the traffic going down there, I mean, it's a lot of traffic
Right.
speeds down there. And I wish there's something that we could do
right.
to try and have that
Well,
more controlled.
VDOT last year completed a study of this site, of this corridor, and recommended a road diet similar to what we had hoped would happen on West Main Street. And they recommended it here, which would create a 2 through lanes, 1 in each direction, plus a 2-way left turn lane, which would greatly improve access into these.
So what did you
homes
call
and-
that? What's it called? A road what?
A road diet or a road reconfiguration. Basically, it takes away lanes that tend to encourage people to drive fast and replaces them with something that's a little tighter and provides that dedicated lane for left turn movements. And
How do you create that with the only 2 lanes that you have there? Does the road have to be widened, or how does that?
actually, it all fits within the same profile of the existing road. It
Okay.
just, the proposal that VDOT came up with would put bike lanes on the outside with a little buffer lane. The strip between the bike lane and the traffic is more than just a painted line. And what they propose, it'd be like a 2-foot wide strip. And then a lane going northbound, a lane going southbound with that 2-way turn lane, allowing for people to make left turns either into businesses or at the intersections.
So have they found that slows the traffic down then?
It slows traffic down and greatly reduces rear end collisions when somebody stops to make a left turn. The most dangerous stretch of roadway that we have that's not already in planning for improvements is that area between West Ridge Road and the entrance to the Commonwealth Center, the Walmart entrance. And it's from rear end collisions when people make a left turn and angle collisions when people try to make that left turn and don't see all the traffic. So
Okay.
there are proposals out there to improve the safety of that corridor, but they aren't implemented yet.
And my last question is, do we know, by having a business there, does it do anything to the value of the properties, residential properties next to them at all? Do we have any indication that it devalues their property by any way?
It's difficult to say. I don't know of any clear statistics on the matter because on the one hand, there may be a perception that, I'm living next to a store, that might drive a value down. But then there's also the fact that now this is property that has commercial use and commercial value, which can drive the prices up.
Right.
And so I don't know where. I know that homes along this corridor have been difficult to sell as it is. And which is one of the reasons why considering reconfiguring the roadway and making some of those properties commercial, it's definitely worth studying.
Right. Okay.
One of the original proposals in the UDO would have created that business residential district, which would have kept the residential character and form, but allowed more business uses to try and make these a little more, I think that would make them more enticing to somebody who needed a business location.
Okay.
So that is my non-real estate agent answer to a.
All righty, well, thank you.
John, can you go back to photo number 3 where it shows the bridge, please? Are the bridges sturdy enough to hold trucks?
We haven't seen anything about them to indicate that they're not. Now, I wouldn't anticipate anything more than a pickup truck
That's what I'm
going in and out of
referring to,
here.
a pickup truck.
But
She received FedEx and UPS packages daily.
All right,
So, I mean, yeah, said she just.
and they're wide enough for this type of vehicle.
UPS and FedEx.
Okay. Photo number 6. John, was that driveway ever a shared driveway with the neighbor?
not to my knowledge,
Next door neighbor?
not to my knowledge,
Okay.
but I couldn't say for sure since I haven't been here.
And
When you get to the backyard, there's a clear fence line that's separating the two properties.
yeah. Okay. I mean, it's so close to the neighbor, the driveway. Did you say the employees are parking back there or any
The proposal states that that would be employee parking only.
employee parking? And how many employees, Ms. Leonard? 3.
And they exit the same way as they would exit the back parking lot where they park the same way that,
Well, if they're parked in the back, they would have to back out and come back out this way, but then they would take the little jog and go out the same exit as everyone else to avoid any conflicts of, generally you would expect the employees to be able to, they're all going to be leaving and coming at about, they'll all come at about the same time and leave at about the same time. And so they can kind of, since they know the drill, they can do it right. Whereas if it were clients parking back there, that could be confusing.
Is there any way traffic could use Pine Street? Come out on Pine Street?
Not without the purchase of that vacant lot.
The vacant lot is not part of
Is not part of this.
sale of the house.
Right.
Oh,
Different ownership.
different ownership. Well, that settles that. Okay.
Have you
I
had?
was just trying
I'm
to
sorry.
get less traffic off of 4th Avenue, let them go out on Pine Street.
Yeah.
Have you had any complaints from the neighbor next door? Any concerns, especially that house being right next to it?
No. The only folks who have commented are the ones that you have on your desk tonight,
Right.
and they're here
Okay.
during the hearing period to fill you in on anything else.
Okay.
I have I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I see the list of all the other businesses that have been approved for that stretch. There was a professional office at 495 North 4th Street that was denied.
Yes.
Do we know
I
why?
do not know why.
Do we know how long ago that's been?
Uh,
Approximately.
I don't. I could look it up, but I don't have it right here.
My personal assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, but since about the time Walmart went in, that stretch of 4th Street has been on a drift toward commercial use
Right.
anyway, right?
It has.
Because in my mind, when I travel through there, more often than not, I'm thinking in terms of commercial use through
Right.
there.
Now, the property that you mentioned, 495, it was later approved for another commercial use, which is a hair salon.
Oh,
And so it's on the list both as an approved and a denied.
I see.
The use that was originally proposed for that parcel actually was then approved for the other side of the block, which is the Wyatt Insurance office.
and I understood that the comprehensive plan earmarks this stretch of roadway for commercial use in the future anyway.
Yeah, the future zoning map shows this as a business. It doesn't specify the type of business district, but it does envision it as being a business use in the future.
Okay, just one more thing for me. The proposed parking, the employee parking and the customer parking in front, is that to be graded and paved, and is that the plan?
Well, there would have to be some grading done, and it would have to meet our minimum standards for parking lot paving, which does allow gravel. And so we'd have to ask the applicant what materials she would be proposing. But it would at least have to be improved for parking so that the vehicles wouldn't sink in wet weather and that kind of thing.
I would just, I'm sorry, I said one more thing, but now I got one more thing. Is the applicant okay with the additional potential conditions that are listed on the back?
We might ask her to
Okay.
come forward and answer that herself. I won't speak for you.
Conditions on the back.
We can ask her that when we open the public hearing.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to make sure she has those to read while she's mulling it over.
And there may be other conditions as well. I don't know,
Well,
signage or stuff like that.
Yeah, you can, if you all see other things, I tried to anticipate things you might want to do, but that doesn't mean I got them all.
The 4 p.m. cutoff, I would think, might be a little restrictive on that end
Yeah.
of the day, maybe 6 p.m.
Right.
But I think they're a good idea myself.
The kind of two questions I had was, I guess one of them you somewhat had a question with as far as the surface. In your opinion, do you think we need to look at requiring something other than gravel just due to dust?
I would prefer to see either asphalt or concrete out there myself.
And we'll ask the applicant, when
Right.
she comes up, but I just wanted to get your opinion first, and
You know,
then
it's not, along with dust, there's also the noise factor. Car driving over gravel tends to be a source of noise, which,
you're gonna have a little bit of a slope coming out of there, especially on the exit, it appears.
Right.
So you're gonna have to contend with displacement of the stone at some point. But the other, I guess, one concern is the residential aesthetics of the property. would it make more sense, I don't know who came up with the plan. Would it make more sense to have all the parking in the back, or does the
Right.
site not allow that?
I think to put all of the parking in the back would be difficult because you would have to turn around and come out the same one-lane entrance that is there. And for employee parking, I don't see that as a restrictive problem because, any new hire could be trained that, this is the way we use the parking lot. Whereas if random customers are coming in and out, they're not going to know that when I leave here, there may be somebody coming in the driveway as I'm going out. And so I'm not comfortable with putting all the parking back there for that main reason. But there might be enough physical space to do it, but the entrance and exit would be problematic.
I'd like to add, Mr. Litton, at 775 4th Street, where JL Hair Salon is, she has 3 parking spaces in the front. And she's got less yard than Ms. Leonard has. Very much. I mean, it's little yard in the front, but she still has 3 parking
Yeah.
spaces there.
I think I think they got a, correct me if I'm wrong, they may have a no left turn sign there.
No left turn. You pull out, you cannot left turn.
Yeah.
And if this is approved, I'd like to see that happen as well.
We could talk about that as
Yeah.
another stipulation on
Right,
there,
another
along with the
stipulation.
signage.
Absolutely.
When we get her up here,
When
we'll
we
kind of
get-
go through all these things. so.
Absolutely.
And I'll ask her this question as well, is this, I don't know, I don't see anything about average daily count for this business as far as the intended. I don't know how much traffic's gonna come in, but technically, there's only 2 parking spaces for customers. Because one of them's ADA.
Right.
So, and I guess with that said, would it make sense to move an ADA spot if it can't go all around back, move the ADA spot to the back?
Potentially.
Just to help out with some additional parking.
Yeah, and there is a back door that could be adjusted for, I mean, either door, I think, right now would have to be adjusted
Right.
for access, but
I think you'd probably have a harder time in the front getting 2% everywhere
Yeah.
that's needed. So that's all I have for right now.
John, I have a
sorry.
question.
Go ahead. Sorry, Lisa.
Speaking about the hair salon, if I'm not mistaken, parking lots in the front and the back are paved. They're not, not paved, but gravel. They're not paved.
yeah, I don't recall, looking at the aerial imagery, I was assuming that those were gravel, at least at the 795 hair salon. The one that's at 495, I'm pretty sure that lot is paved.
And
So that's the one at the corner of Pine and 4th.
yeah.
No, you're right, John. It's 775. It's only gravelled. It's
Yeah.
gravelled in the front, it's gravelled in the back.
Right. And I guess you could say the hair salon would have more traffic than her tax business or all the business, because, of course, they all come by appointment, but still, hair salon would have more business. And I haven't heard of any problems since that lady's been in there with the hair salon. So.
John, if it was paved, how about the stormwater, the runoff from those driveways? Would that create any sort of issue there? Because I know they often have, some heavy rains that come down through there.
The amount of square footage we're talking about is pretty low.
Okay.
Not sure that it would fall in the range where we would regulate it. It's under 10,000.
Okay.
And do all of the residents on 4th Avenue, they have to exit onto Fourth Avenue to get out of their dwellings, correct?
Many do. Some of the ones who live on corner properties have exits on the side streets. But most any of the ones that are in mid-block situations have to enter and exit off of 4th Street. And there's some on the north side that I don't know exactly how they get in to their property, unless there's an alley or access in the back that I'm not aware of. No other questions, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, John. Right, next, we're going to open the public hearing to receive comments regarding the request of Ms. Donna Leonard for a special exception permit to operate an accounting and tax office on property located at 525 North 4th Street, tax parcel 41A-1-22-7 in an R2 residential zoning district. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Okay. Approach the podium, sir, please. And state your name and also your address for the recording of the minutes, please.
Thank you. Gregory R. Pivarnik at 530 North 4th Street. It's directly across from the proposed business there. Firstly, totally not opposed to you putting your business there and would love to see it. I understand that the town's vision is to do commercial up and down the road. Also, I understand that this the vision is to kind of keep it hometown feel, like you've gotten these pictures all around your rooms and all around town. The historic part is an aspect. You can exploit that, make it more historic, bring attention to it. Parking is a problem. We got a CSO problem down the street, with the Walmart and everything. It's a combined sewer overflow. Every time it rains, I have to call the town to unblock ours from the clean out because it all backs up, okay? It just wasn't, the pipes are not big enough to handle, okay? Putting more blacktop up and down the street makes a strip mall, makes more flow. You've got to go in and fix the sewers in the first place up and down the street. What we're proposing, basically, is bring it down to a 2-lane. This takes a safety thing. Bring it 2-lane, parking up and down the street, parallel parking, just like you've done on the latter part of this street. You slow down traffic. Here we got parking on the street. That brings it to 2-lane. Get rid of the parking lot or the stoplight at the corner of 4th and Pine. Put in a 4-way stop. Put in a 4-way stop everywhere. That takes care of your left turn problems. You don't need an extra lane. You can get parking all the way up and down the street, slow your traffic down, greatly reduce the noise up and down the street. And you can go ahead but all this, I understand, put these little businesses in all the houses. Keep a nice feel to the town. That's all we're asking. You start opening it up to everybody putting these parking lots and everything in the front yard, you're gonna have a real problem with your water and your sewer. It's already a problem. It spills out into Withers Park. You get combined feces and all that mess. It's a problem. It needs to be fixed anyway. So we figured the road's going to get torn up sooner than later with the sewer rehabilitation project. And you might as well get people used to it. You really need to slow stuff down there. As John has said, we're just proposing parallel parking up and down the street and open it up for businesses. Put the parking on the street. You can use that parking for events downtown in Withers Park, all that. There'll be parking. I don't want to poo-poo on your parade, but we don't need a lot more blacktop and runoff situation in this town. And we'd like to keep the noise down. So that's really I have to say.
So I have a question for you. Did you say you had problems with the sewer or the stormwater when it rains?
Every time it rains, because of all the runoff from up in the Walmart and everything, because the sewer systems can't handle it. It's a combined sewer system.
Or the sewer?
It's combined. It backs up into each other, and we get back up.
I think what he's referring to is infiltration into the sewer system.
Yeah.
Tends to overcharge it and cause problems.
And it
Okay.
backs up, it eddies right in front of our property, and every time there's a big rain, I've got to call the town to come out and push this stuff that's backed up into our drain,
Right.
you know, because it pops up and it flows down the front hill. And,
Okay.
and your town guys know that. They know our address very well. But so,
And do you live opposite this property, sir?
directly
opposite over the road.
I'm not sure if that property has the same
Okay.
problem when it rains. So, you know,
Okay, thank you.
okay, that's it, thank you.
Well, you know, the song, I don't want to pay paradise and put up a parking lot. I think this is where we ought to start parking. It is just somewhere for some car to pull up, come in, and give me their taxes. Then, 12 weeks out of the year, just 12 weeks, the other 40 weeks, you don't even gonna know we're there. We're actually open 2 days this week over here. So, like I said, some people still do appointments. Maybe 15% of my people. They just want to come in and sit down. They will be there maybe an hour, and they will be there one at a time. And so this is mainly, there's no traffic really that you're discussing. Parking lot per se, my vision is, I know you're talking about concrete and you're talking about asphalt. My heart is set on River Rock. It's not as dusty as gravel. I think that's what the hair salon started out with. I want something to look good. So I was just really, my heart was set on that. So, but in the end, what I need to do is whatever I need to do to get the permit. It's not, we're not going to be beating heads here. I don't know what should be done here. I know what I'd like to do, and I very much need this property. But, you know, whatever suggestions and so forth, I'm sure, you know, we can work it out. Now, let me look over this real quick. Addition of 2 trees in front of the parking area would help screen the parking lot from North 4th Street. I very much agree with that if you'll make Jamie Wyatt do it as well, or if you'll make the hair salon do it as well, or whatever. The trees then would get too tall to where they're going to say, well, what's behind there? You know, what's behind there? And my little sign out front's really not going to help a lot. Perhaps maybe some pretty flowery shrubs or something per se, anything aesthetic. But I don't understand the 2 trees in front of the parking area to screen my business that I'm trying to get people to come to. But whatever we do there is fine. The hedges in back, that's fine, although one of my clients' parents live directly behind there, and they're wanting me to take all the bushes down. So now I'm going to take all the bushes down. You want me to put the trees up? That's fine, though. I don't mind that at all. And I think you've seen on there where I want to do a fence, too, so that the property beside of us is, you know, I'm going to do a privacy fence. I think that's in the plans there, to where the people beside of us, and I was talking to Travis. Travis Jackson owns those 2 properties. He's not here tonight, but he said thumbs up. You know, there be a privacy fence there where you're not going to see us come in and out. We are not all there at one time. I don't work a whole lot in the summer, and so we are not there all at one time. There's not going to be like 3 of us coming in at one time, you know, barreling in there, parking and going around front or whatever. I mean, it's going to be really, really quiet. Let's go to number 3, though. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. That, again, is the 12 weeks out of the year. However, there are a few people that I make appointments for that can't come at 4. They have to come maybe at 5. So I can't be locked into that 8 to 4. Right now, we're open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 8 to 4. But like I said, we weren't open today due to staff sickness. So 50 weeks out of the year, we're going to be quiet as mouse. The other 12 weeks, it's not going to be like a drive-through. It's not going to be like zoom, 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 zoom. We there again, you know, it's just very orderly and quiet. I actually like how you've done the parking spaces. I want to just thank this man right here. He has led me every step of the way. He has taken every phone call. He has taken every email. He has helped me because I didn't know what to do. And so just appreciate all of his help. I like the way, I didn't think about doing the parking that way. I was going to come in and then turn and have them face 4th Street, but I sort of like what you've done, angle it. To go to the ADA, I really think I need to have that in front. We can talk about that because of the way, if you'll see, actually, if I may, I'm sorry, you see right here, there is, this is the concrete porch going up right here. And so I would like the ADA to be as close to that so that the people could get, we're going to be right there in the front. I don't know if you've seen the plans of the house, but when you walk in, it's pretty open. That's why I've took it. It's real open. When you walk into the front there, that's where we're going to be. And then one of the bedrooms is going to be used for my intern's office because he's, just doesn't have to deal with people all the time. And then we have a bathroom, and then we have another bedroom that we're going to use for filing, and then we have the kitchen. So I would hate to bring anybody in through the kitchen if I didn't have to. So, I'd like to make the front ADA.
Donna, and will your clients come by appointment?
When they come, I'm sorry.
Will they come by appointment times, or will they just walk in?
Okay, well, like I said, probably about 15% still want to have appointments and come in and sit down. And like I said, we make those hour by hour. And I usually make the first one at 10. I'm not an early bird. And then I go pick up the grandchildren in the afternoon about 3 or 3:30. So, unless it's a later appointment, it's not like somebody's coming at 9, somebody's coming at 10, somebody's coming at 11, somebody's coming at 12. It's not anything like that at all. And then the other clients, will just be coming by to drop off a package, or we might have some type of slot or something. Like I have now, I have a little drop box here, and sometimes they don't even want to come in. They just want to open that up and throw it in there, because they're busy doing something else. So when we're talking about parking lot and traffic, I won't be adding any traffic. Most of my traffic that comes to see me now is probably up and down 4th Street anyway, and they'll just pop in to see me when they're on their way to Walmart or somewhere else. And the parking lot, I would like it to look as good as possible. Like I said, I really want river rock. I don't want concrete or pavement because I just don't want to go around paving the world. I have to, I will, but I'd rather not. I really wanted something pretty like river rock. The sign out front, it's going to be a small triangular thing that's like a flower bed. I want a sign like this so that people coming down here can see it's Leonard's Tax Service, and people coming this way can see it's Leonard's Tax Service. And then the other back of the triangle is going to say, thank you for your business, or thank you, or something, so that when they come out, they can see that thank you.
What size sign are you looking to?
As big as I can, but as small as I need to for your approval.
We're trying to keep it as small as possible.
Yeah. I like the type. I was telling John, do you know where I used to be, where the law firm is and Ameriprise is, and they have a nice little flower bed, but they have a really, really tall sign. I would like something like that, like brick or nice stonework or something,
Right.
with flowers under it, and then the little signs, up. So there again, guys, you're going to have to tell me
Okay.
as much as I can do there. Because it would be ridiculous me say I want a 7-foot sign there and then not get the permit because we're too far down this road to not try to work out what I need to work out to be approved.
Ma'am, where are you currently located at?
I've been renting for 10 years. I'm still in rent. So I'm over here at 180 Tazewell in Wayne Dunford's building between the dentist and the barber shop.
Okay.
That's my second stint there. I started out on 1st Street, and I was there for 3 years. I came to Tazewell, but that's a 250-year-old building, and Wayne didn't have time to fix anything. So I went to Monroe Street, right across from the library where Ameriprise and the law office is. And that got flooded out by frozen pipes one year. So I ran back down to Tazewell Street and just been looking ever since.
Do you have any plans to do any modifications to this building at all?
No,
to the property? Are you going to use it as inside, or are you going to have some remodeling done inside?
I'm going to
there?
paint it.
Okay. And any,
I'm sorry, I'm going to take up the carpet and I'm going to paint it.
okay. Anything aesthetic outside that you're going to do at all or not?
I would like to trim that lilac bush
Okay.
on the corner.
But not any sort of physical,
No,
aesthetical stuff to the building itself?
no, sir.
Okay.
I'm afraid in a few years I might have to replace the roof, but I'm not changing anything.
Okay.
I'm just,
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's still going to look like a house.
yes. It's going to look like it does now.
That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
find out, what
Yes, sir.
your plans are.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mr. Litton, did you have something?
What, I just.
I'm sorry about the ADA, but I really need
No,
to come in
it
up that
doesn't-
little. Okay.
I guess when we were talking, we probably didn't, I guess none of us really knew the extent of your traffic. I was thinking
Yeah.
more people, so like there would be 3 or 4 cars there at one time.
No,
So
sir.
I apologize.
That's okay. No, no.
And it wouldn't matter either way. If you thought it would work, I would
Yeah.
say, well, you know, you could
And I
always
do
change
have
it.
I do have a lady in a wheelchair, and she's gotten in my place over the last 3 years, and I just don't know how she does that. But yeah, so I would think there would need to be some kind of little ramping system there where she can just come up, or whoever can just come up the front there and come in, because that's where the main area is going to be.
How's she going to get in if the ADA is in the front there?
That's what I'm saying. That's where it's got to be, because
I
there's
know,
going to be
but
yeah.
you trying to bring her in from
Because
the
there's a-
side? And then if you put river rock around there, how's she going to get over that river rock to get into the house or get into the property?
Well, I have no ADA now, and she gets over the little humps and everything, and I
Because you
mean,
want to bring her off the side of that road there, is that correct?
yeah. The
what I
ADA is going to be one of the first parking spaces there. Is that what y'all are saying?
No, ma'am, that's the road that goes straight through to the back. I'm just wondering how in the front,
Well, when she comes in, the parking. Okay, when she comes in the driveway.
uh-huh,
Okay, the ADA is going to be the first one when you turn left.
right,
That's going to be the first parking lot.
Okay.
Well, there's going to have to be some type of, and that's a concrete pad porch right there.
is that a concrete porch? Because I thought you wanted to have,
Isn't it?
The existing porch here, what, that rectangle you see there is basically the dimensions of the existing concrete porch.
right,
And, you know, for any of these spaces to be ADA, some part of this is going to have to be paved.
right.
So that a wheelchair or other object can, you know, someone in a walker or whatever, they can navigate that.
That's why I'm not sure how that river rock will work if you are having ADA
You know,
parking in the front there.
what you would do out in this area, you know, that, you know, there's more options out here. But for that one ADA space and a pathway into the building, all that has to be,
Can it be concrete?
has to be paved. It doesn't necessarily have to be concrete, but a smooth paved surface.
Right.
Yeah, concrete. I hate paving, and you constantly have to blacken it, and the stink, and the smell, and that type of thing. So I can do concrete.
I mean, I like the idea of the river rock, but like I said, with an ADA, it wouldn't work for a wheelchair there with the river rock.
Right. Except for that area. The ADA area can be concrete, and the rest can be river rock.
Yes, ma'am, and I'm not sure how that'll work because you have concrete coming in and concrete going out, and then you'll have this little piece of concrete for the ADA part, and the rest will be river rock. Is that correct?
Well, but
Because you've got two bridges that come, one comes in, one goes off.
right,
So
but then
you're
you're not thinking about all the yard too. I mean,
You're not going to demolish those concrete bridges,
No,
right?
no.
So those will be concrete. And
right,
you'll have a
concrete.
little- and then I'm saying you'll have a little piece of concrete for the ADA spot there, and then the rest will be river rock.
I do think it's doable,
Uh-huh.
but you'll probably want to have a landscape architect or someone sort of give you some details on how
Right.
to make that work so that the
Right.
stone will stay in place and that the concrete from the driveway is,
Well, if this old hippie has to go to concrete, she'll go to concrete, but I don't want to go to pavement.
Sure. I understand.
You know, the Yellow Taxi song, we'll go back to that. But anyway, those are my thoughts, but, you know, whatever whatever y'all suggest and whatever I need to do. Just wondering about those trees in front, if we can come to some conclusion on, big tall trees that's going to hide me. That's
Yeah, I don't
defeats the
think-
whole purpose. If I can have some type of a hedge or something to make it look better.
Personally, I don't think it needs trees in front, because as they get bigger there, it also, the traffic coming down, it makes it worse for turns and anything like that.
I could do
mean,
a
in my
hedge or
opinion,
something.
You know.
We'll discuss all this, of course. I think you're probably, I know this is kind of sprung on you, those hours, if we do decide to, consider these stipulations, we really need to know, like, your maximum hours. Like, I know your intent is 8 to 4, but
Right.
like and I don't know what
Right,
everybody
sure,
else is
sure,
thinking.
sure.
We kind of need to know the outer parameters and the days of the week. I don't know if you ever work on Saturday.
No, I do not.
Okay, so you're fine with keeping it Monday through Friday, but
Right.
8 to 4, it's only 8 hours, So, and I know you might not work more than 8, but let's say you come in at 10 and want to work 6, and we agree
Right.
on 4.
Okay.
We
Like
need
I
to
said,
talk
I
about
do
this.
have maybe 4 or 5 people who I have to meet either 4 to 5 or 5 to 6. That's 4 or 5 people a year.
So it'd be 8 to 6 then.
So we could say generally your hours are going to be 8 to 6 p.m.
Yeah, but I hate to say generally because, like I said, that's 5 evenings a week, 5 evenings
Right.
out of
Yeah.
12
I
weeks.
just don't want to restrict you to where you got to be packed up every day out the door at 4, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, the conditions become part of the law.
right.
So if you're working at 7, someone will call you in and you'll be a violation. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So we do need to make sure that we get the hours correct. And I
Right.
think we should be gracious with the hours, and so if that's what you all want to do.
And that's why I was asking. I just
Right.
was trying to get an
Sure.
idea on what you really needed, nothing more than that. But
Yeah.
if you say 6 p.m. is acceptable,
Yeah, and like I said, that's, 1 or 2.
and then and the same thing with your sign, we generally can put like a square footage on it.
Sure.
Would probably be the easiest way to approach it, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, tell me what to put up, yeah.
What are you thinking square footage wise? Or has it really, you don't know. Yeah, you got kind of a vision for the sign, but you don't really have a vision.
On the side.
I have a vision for the sign that it's, like I said, where Ameriprise and Tom Jackson are.
Right.
They have like a brick thing that they put flowers in.
Right.
I would like that, but I would like it to be a triangle. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then on this side, a sign, however tall you tell me I can put it, and on this side, a sign. And then in the back, I want the same size sign, because I want to say thank you as they're going out.
So perhaps a 32 square foot sign face, not counting the brick. That
That's
work?
generally how you would look at it, as a sign face. So you said 32.
John, can you show us that sign?
That's what I'm working on here.
It's the church.
No, I think the neck back is it. Yeah.
But theirs is really tall. I don't want anything that tall.
Yeah, I had to get back.
See how they have the little flower bed? However high I can go with that, and then with the flower bed in a triangle shape, and then the signs between it. I'm not going to have the post like that. I'm just going to have the brick flower bed and post on, sign on a post coming up out of the flower bed.
Like 4x4 posts?
Like a post and a post with my sign on it.
Right.
Whatever I've got to do.
You said
I
like a
am-
4x4 post?
Whatever I got to do. If it's got to be less than 4x4, I mean,
I am guessing that sign there is probably in the 25 to 30 square foot range, you think? It's
I think it's
smaller than
I think it's a little bit bigger than what it appears in the
Yeah.
photo.
well,
but
and there again, I'm not saying that tall or that big. I'm just saying I want,
I'm figuring it's
flower
probably 8
bed with
feet
signs
wide
stuck
and
in it.
maybe 2.5 to 3 feet tall.
I'd say you're pretty close.
Yeah.
Is the planter and the flower bed included in the?
They are not
sign?
included.
So that's a
So-
separate thing altogether.
Right.
And there are no restrictions on planters.
Right.
We just want to make sure you get
Yes.
what makes sense, so you don't have to come back and spend $800 or whatever it is to file again. Because as it is, there was no mention of a sign, so I would presume that you wouldn't even be able to put up a sign.
Oh, I had it in my little drawing to you, but.
Yeah,
somewhere along
it
the
was
line.
mentioned, but sizes were never,
Size is not, yeah.
But I think to try and keep the hometown feel to it as well, I don't think we want to have a huge sign up there anyway.
no, I would. The standards for signs on entrance corridors would limit this to 6 feet tall and which is I think that's right. Have to look it up again to make sure, but that's the closest standard that we have to regulate that might apply here.
But you think 32 square feet is,
I mean, that's a big sign,
That's a big sign.
very big sign.
well, it's really, we're talking 2, like she's wanting 2 because of the V.
Right.
So it's really
Well,
like 216.
As long as she keeps that V kind of tight, it's just counted as,
Okay.
you have the 2 sides count as one total.
Oh,
If you're-
okay.
if you're
I thought it'd be measured on both.
That's still a big sign, 8 by 2.5 feet, whatever, which pretty much that one is there.
Okay,
I
y'all are
think.
making the sign big. I'm not making the sign big. Y'all gotta
Right.
tell me what to do. And if it can't
Okay.
be a triangle, we'll just have the little line there. I just want something I don't want a sign stuck in the ground. I want a planter out there of some sort. If it has to be lineated this way, fine. But it would be really nice if it could be
Yeah.
a small little triangle flower bed with 2 little signs. It could even be a pole with attorney shingle on it. You
We're
know,
just trying to
surely
work out the parameters
I
of
could do
what's going
that.
to work best for you and for everyone, ma'am.
So don't make it 6 feet tall. Have one 6 feet tall.
Madam Chair, I took notes. Would you like for me to take a stab at the conditions? Okay, here we go.
Okay.
No left turn and access signage coming in and out, for the in and out. Surface of river rock for the parking. Hours 8 to 6 p.m. daily. Parking layout per the plan. ADA accessible space with paved access to the door. Signage shall not exceed 32 square face. Sign face shall not exceed 32 square feet and shall meet the entrance corridor requirements for height. Does that work for everybody?
I think that 32 square feet is too big, to be honest.
Do you think it's too big?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think it needs to be reduced because that 8 by 2.5, that's 20 square feet.
Okay.
So-
What would you propose?
20 square feet.
20 square feet?
I don't know whether anyone else has any other objections to it or suggestions, but I wouldn't want to go over 20 square feet. I think 32 square feet is a big sign.
When you mentioned the surface being river rock, at that point, then she would be ultimately bound to river rock for the eternity of the permit, right?
I mean,
So,
if that's,
so do we even need to put that in there?
we can
Or,
take it
I mean,
out?
I don't know what, I wouldn't want her to put river rock in, find out she didn't like it and be bound to it, I guess
Surface minimum of stone?
that would probably make
Okay,
better sense, yes.
all right. And how is everybody feeling about the 20 square foot sign?
Sounds small to me, but I can't visualize. Can we?
If you think of
Let me get you a tape measure.
the standard real estate signs,
Uh-huh.
they're usually about 2 feet by 3 feet. So they're in the 12 square foot range.
Okay.
A larger real estate sign is going to be up around the 16 to 20 square feet. So, you know, trying to relate it to something you see every day.
Yeah, like that picture is probably 6 square foot
About the size of the TV.
of the TV. TV would be smaller.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I mean, if you got 8 feet, you come up from that corner, about over there, and
Okay.
2.5 feet is up there somewhere. That's 20 square feet. You know, roughly. 8 feet is about there from here to the corner, 2.5 feet up. I mean, that's a pretty big sign, I think, but, you know. Sorry, Brandy.
Can you live with that?
Yes,
Can you live with that
yes, yes.
size?
Uh-huh.
Was there anything else, Elaine?
No. Do
No.
you want me to reread it?
Yes, please.
Okay. No left turn and other applicable access signage. All the signage needed for coming in and out. Surface is a minimum of stone for the parking area. The hours is 8 to 6 p.m. daily. The parking layout per the plan. ADA accessible space with paved access to the door. And the sign face shall not exceed 20 square feet, and the height shall meet the entrance corridor requirements. Does that work, John?
I think that's reasonable.
Okay. Before we close the public hearing, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay. If not, we'll close the public hearing. And next is the recommendation to town council. So I'll need a motion for the planning commission to make a recommendation to the town council to either approve or deny the request of Ms. Donna Leonard for a special exception permit to operate an accounting and tax office on property located at 525 North 4th Street, tax parcel 41A-1-22-7 in an R2 residential zoning district as presented with the conditions that Elaine stated. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I need a roll call vote. Brad?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, moving on. The citizens period. Is there anyone that would like to speak about something other than the scheduled public hearing that we just had? So we'll just move on. We won't open that. And moving on to other business. Continued discussion regarding the definition and conditional use standards for outdoor swimming pools and ornamental water features.
All right. That's not the one I wanted. Provided the proposed regulations for this. Now, currently, swimming pools, spas, and other ornamental water features, fountains, that kind of thing, are treated as accessory structures. And so they fall under the guidelines, and typically accessory structures under 8.5 feet tall have a setback from the property line of 3 feet. And so there was some concerns as to whether that was appropriate for a swimming pool. And so we put together this potential conditional use standard that would be inserted into the proposed UDO as section 8.48 in the Article 8 about conditional uses. And this would be to guide the development of pools, fountains, and other water features, and it would apply to the construction of any ornamental pool or as defined herein. And the definition that we came up with was swimming pools, spas, ornamental water features, any swimming pool, spa, hot tub, fountain, or similar artificial water feature that is larger than 150 square feet or deeper than 24 inches. And the reason for that particular definition is that is the size limitations that in the building code are what trigger safety features and the kind of things that we're regulating. So if somebody has one of those little fountains that you go into the garden center and pick up, and you put it out in your front yard by the front door and it makes a lovely sound, that's not something that this would be regulating. It's mainly concerned with larger, deeper water features that a child might get into and could get hurt. So that's where this, looking at any feature that's that size or larger is required by the Code of Virginia to be, and the building code, to be enclosed by a safety fence and with self-latching gates. And and so the requirement here is reference to the building code. In case the building code changes, we always want to have that safety feature built in so that anything new would meet the current standard. We've added a setback and increased it from the 3 that it would have been required under our current ordinance to 10 feet. And that is a fairly arbitrary number, but it seemed like better than 3, but still not trying to be too excessive. We've called for them being in the rear yard. And so again, these are the larger ones, that they be separated at least 10 feet from a dwelling or other occupied structure, and that there be a clear zone of 3 feet, which is a building code requirement. So most of these conditions are reference the building code, and there's a handout that was in your packet last month. Well, no, it was on your desk last month. This is a information brochure that our building officials department has put together to help people understand the requirements. Certain pools, if they're shallow enough and small enough, don't fall under the regulation, but others do. And so this standard I worked with Tim Spraker and Jason in the building official's office to make sure that what these requirements that we're building in wouldn't conflict with the building regulations, building code. Any questions? Anyone see anything that runs? Shows
Yeah, I have a question. The ornamental water features, that's basically a fountain, right?
Probably. It could also be a fish pond or.
Why would you want to put a fountain in your backyard? I mean, you put everything here to go in the backyard, but normally a fountain, a water fountain, you put in your front yard. So I'm just curious to know why.
And that this ordinance wouldn't preclude you putting a small fountain in a front yard.
I'm talking about a larger fountain. If someone put a larger fountain in, they wouldn't be allowed to do it, right?
So this kicks in at 150 square feet.
150 square feet.
Or deeper than 2 feet, I believe it is.
Okay. So, I mean, that's pretty big then.
Yeah.
Have to be real big. Okay.
5:15.
Yeah, okay, that's fine then. I mean, they get a bit that size in their backyard.
Yeah.
Okay,
Now, I have designed some water features that would have completely fall into this category in backyards.
right.
And folks that have spent, upwards of $150,000 just on a water feature for their backyard. So
Okay.
there are people who do it. I can't afford it, but hey. Now, I was not able to find any other community. That doesn't mean I had a completely exhaustive search, but in searching on municipal zoning codes, I haven't found any other community in the state of Virginia that regulates this. We would be, I won't say unique, but we would be among a small number
It regulates which part? The
that
whole?
regulates swimming pools, fountains, and water features separately from other accessory structures.
So how do they regulate that in other towns or cities then? I mean,
All of the clear zone requirements, the fencing requirements, all of those issues are covered under the building code, and they treat them as an accessory structure, which, any placement would be governed by that, just like we do now.
right. But even in the existing ordinances, there are swimming pools in there, in the existing ordinances.
Well,
So we do regulate in some way.
in ours, we don't really specify swimming pools in our zoning ordinance,
I mean, it's in our existing ordinances, swimming pools.
but it's just treated as a accessory structure.
Okay,
And having to meet the building code, which addresses a lot of the things that are in this proposal are already covered in the building code, so.
so do we not need to regulate it then? And just as long as there's swimming pools in there,
I mean,
I don't know.
the
how
main
else you do
difference
it.
is if, there was concern expressed that putting a swimming pool 3 feet away from a property line is too close. And so if the goal is to increase that separation, this is a good way to do it.
Right,
If, beyond that, it's really up to the pleasure of this group as to how we address it.
well, in the new UDO, there was no mention of swimming pools at all. So that meant that someone who does buy an R1, R2, they can't put a swimming pool in because there's no mention of it. But it is in the existing ordinances.
Well, we could have addressed that by adding swimming pools to the definition of our accessory structure. And so,
Okay,
but I don't think this is a bad way to go.
right.
Don't misunderstand me. I'm just pointing out that other municipalities that I've been able to find don't regulate this separately from other accessory structures.
Right, but they'll still have it in there though. It's not that they don't.
It's not that
regulate.
it's not that they don't allow pools. It's
Right.
that they don't have a specific set of guidelines that apply to them.
Okay.
Do you guys want to add pools as a conditional use or not? Don't have to bring this up again at another meeting. Maybe we just go around. Mr. Litton, how do you feel?
I think this should work. I didn't know we were regulating ponds, and I guess I'm trying to. A hot tub wouldn't come into play because it's less than 150 square feet.
But it's deeper than 2 feet.
That would.
So it would.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that said, and Does it,
So does that mean a
does it
hot
gotta have a
tub?
fence?
Or something else to keep it secure.
But it doesn't say that. That's why I was trying to figure out, because I don't know that it says that.
Okay,
I mean, maybe I'm missing something.
right.
Because, I mean, most hot tubs just have cover on it,
Right.
which in my mind suffices as the perimeter control.
Well, and the other thing that's allowed as perimeter control is, it's an above-ground pool that has the outside structure of the pool is 4 feet or higher, doesn't require a fence.
I don't think a hot tub's gonna be 4 feet. I don't have one. I don't know. Y'all may know better than me.
And we just modify number 1 to say it must meet the building code.
Whatever you
building
think's
code-
gonna be less problematic
I think
for
that's gonna
someone.
be less problematic. What do you think, John?
I'm fine with that.
Because
Okay.
would hot tubs have to be 36 inches away from a structure then?
They already do. That's,
already do.
That's
That's already-
regulated by the building
Okay,
code.
all right. I mean, I just didn't want to leave swimming pools out of the new UDO, that's all. Because it's in the existing ordinances, so I just didn't want to leave I think it needs to be in there. I don't know how, what's the best way to do it, but it definitely needs to be in there.
Litton, did you have anything else?
No, fine.
Mr. Jones?
No,
I'm good.
Dave, you're feeling pretty good?
Good. We're all good?
All right, so we'll keep it in.
With the change to number 1.
Yes. And you've noted that down, because I'm... All right. What's next?
Accessory structures?
All right. So looking at accessory structures, I want to go through the different considerations that we need to look at. And we need to consider, do we need to treat them all the same in all districts, and do we need to make changes to the way we regulate accessory structures? One of the main points that we're looking at is it all right to put accessory structures in side yards? And I think there are some potential cases where it would be. Some things to consider is, are we making them more visible from the street? And the current regulations for accessory structures were developed when we had a different ordinance for our fencing. And so when we revised the fence ordinance in 2022, we allowed privacy fences to come forward into side yards and to be pushed closer to the street on corner lots. And basically expanding the part of the rear yard that could be somewhat private. And so that brings up the question, is it now maybe appropriate for accessory structures to be in an area where you could put them behind a privacy fence? And so that might weigh into our decision. Let's face it, a lot of sheds don't look that good, and so we have to do what we can to consider that. Looking at the foundations on a lot of sheds, I don't know how many times I drive by and they've stacked up a half a dozen blocks on the corners of a shed and not put any skirting or foundation or anything. And there may be some other issues to look at. Wanted to use a few examples that have come up. The owner of this house applied for a permit to place this little shed, and I believe he parks a vintage car in that structure. And in the neighboring lot, it's probably 20 or 30 feet in front of it, the neighbor had an existing shed. But because of the quirks of our ordinance, this one had to be pushed further back, and I'll look at that a little bit more in plan view. This site, the interpretation of the ordinance that has been sort of traditional, and when you read the ordinance definitions of rear yard, it basically defines a line going along the backside of this further back part of the structure, which in this case is a deck that's attached to the house, and extending that out to the property lines. And so the buildable rear yard area for accessory structures is shaded in gray in this. The definition of the front yard is a similar plane across the front of the house, and then the side yards would be a plane along the sides of the house. Now, that doesn't take into account someone who puts their house on their lot at an angle, as this one is, or where a street takes a curve in front. And my interpretation, when I analyzed this application, was to take from the street going back to the furthest point and draw that line there. And likewise, coming back perpendicular to the street to that furthest point and drawing the line so that it gives a little bit more of the potential area. Now you can see the neighbor's shed, which is well behind their house. They could have put it all the way up at this location, whereas just because of the quirk of how they cited their structure with our current ordinance, either they couldn't build it at all, or, so the interpretation of the current ordinance gets dicey when situations aren't kind of the cookie cutter property. And
I think your interpretation is good
yeah,
because there's a curved road there.
That's a more sensible approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how many times that occurs, though.
well, we got another one.
Is it often?
Anyone who comes in with a permit, they're
Every one of
always
those.
like this.
Well, here's the question I would ask. Is, let's say the house wasn't even on the lot, and the neighbor owned the lot, but the neighbor wanted to put a garage over there. How is that interpreted? Because there is no back,
Well, let's say the owner of this house owned this lot too. We treat it if the same owner, and it has to be the same owner, not if it's under an LLC that he happens to own, that doesn't get there. But if the name on the tax record is the same, that line for the back of this house would just extend across, and basically any of that area would be fair game.
What if it's what if just a single
And that
person
that
owns it?
situation has come up.
What if a single person owns that lot, doesn't have a house, maybe wants to build a garage first? How is that addressed?
Now, currently, the interpretation has been that you cannot have an accessory structure without a primary structure.
I was just curious because I know I've
And
never ran across where
Now, the
it's-
county doesn't do that because there are people who will build, like you say, want to build a garage first, so they'll have something to operate out of while they do other work. And, that's a quirk of our ordinance that, today I'd have to say no if somebody wanted to, put a temporary structure up first. This situation, this is over on Sherwood Forest neighborhood. If you come off of Wesley Highway and turn in there at the doctor's office and turn left instead of right, this is at the end of the cul-de-sac. The family that lives there has this recreational vehicle that they would like to build a garage for. They have not formally applied yet, but they inquired. And this is the situation, the cul-de-sac, the back side of the house. The only area under strict interpretation of our current ordinance would be this area back here, and all of that is a fairly significant slope and really not very easy to build on, plus backing that trailer around whatever kind of road you'd have to have would certainly exceed my driving skills, and my dad, who drove 18-wheeler, probably could do it, but I don't know that anyone else could.
Side yard, John.
Right.
Yeah.
So the backyard here, well, see, the house faces the street here. So the rear and the two sides.
Oh, okay, I see.
But again, because there's a cul-de-sac there and they own all that property, I mean, I prefer your second interpretation, to be honest.
Okay,
It
so
makes
here's
Sorry.
the other interpretation, which, again, coming perpendicular to the right-of-way line, and whatever the back point of the house is, that becomes the line. Now, in this case, the location for that RV garage would actually be closer to the street than the house is.
Right.
And my interpretation is that the 40-foot minimum front yard setback should not be extended just because someone chose to put their house 75 feet back off of the road.
Right.
They can still build up to that line. And so this application has not been submitted yet. They just came in and asked the question,
Right.
could I do this? And usually that's followed up a few months later with an actual application, but
I mean, that makes more sense to me than the other one does, because like I said, they're in that whole property there and they're on that cul-de-sac. So, I mean, they really have the whole front going around there
right.
as their property. So I
And the
don't know
only
why
part
you-
that's level enough to build on,
Because why would
is
you
up
do
there.
it the other way? It doesn't make sense at all. You know?
yeah.
So one approach may be if you did want to loosen up your regulations about how you define rear yards, and by essence, by loosening up your definition of a rear yard, allowing more structures in sort of the rear side yards, is to maybe just go gently into that direction by just saying certain accessory structures, garages, or, because like John said, if you open it up to all accessory structures, you may end up with some wonky sheds and things that might not be good for opening that door.
And I
Just
agree with
another way to
that.
think about that.
Are you saying something along the lines of more on a permanent foundation?
I mean, there's a whole gamut of options, but, because this is a big deal for Wytheville, you all have had a pretty strict interpretation about rear yard accessory structure placement for a long time. So, you know, I would applaud you if you wanted to change this with the UDO, but it's just, I think it's something you would want to be careful about.
I think, I mean, I've always thought that the garages, I don't have a problem with that going in side yards because it has a permanent foundation and it's a permanent structure. But definitely accessory structure, I'm not sure I agree with all accessory structures being, especially in residential areas. Now, business is a different thing, but in residential areas, I'm not sure I agree with having the accessory structures in the side yard. But garages, yes, I mean, I don't have a problem. I don't know how everyone else feels about it, but because it would take away this problem here anyway. I mean, not that there is a problem with it, because you get these different lots that come up, and just the way you interpret it, it makes sense to me the way that you've done it there. But if we had it in the side yard anyway, this wouldn't come up, right?
Right.
Is this placement considered side yard?
This placement here would, depending on how you interpret the ordinance, you could call it a front yard, you could call it a side yard. And
Also the rear yard.
yeah, it is, you know, some lots just don't
Right.
easily fit into those, you know, the text that you can use. Let's look at the next one. This is a case that will be going before the BZA this month. The owner of this property, this parcel was platted back in the 1800s, and the house is, frankly, probably one of the older ones in town. Also built in the 1800s. And the lot is tiny. And so when you look at the parcel in aerial view, that red outline there shows the property boundaries. The front is along the street side. The house, I believe, sits somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 or 9 feet off of the right-of-way. And that makes that magenta line 15 feet as the minimum setback, which would apply to any new construction on this site. Even that doesn't leave much option. The property owner would like to build a garage in this corner, and which is clearly in a side yard, and they are seeking a variance to do so. And right now, that's the only mechanism they have to get leeway on where to position this particular structure. But when you look at if this property owner wanted to put a similar structure in a similar location, it would be a by right use because their house faces the other street, and that's a side yard. If these two property owners here wanted to put one at the back of their lot, they could, because there's a alley that goes up that they could use to access, they could use for access. And so
I think you have an aerial imagery that shows that.
I don't have it in this presentation.
Okay,
I do in the
BZA packet.
BZA packet. But, so this is a case where if there were a street over here, they'd be golden. They wouldn't have a problem, but they don't. Okay, next I want to talk about how we might regulate this, because currently we've got some wonkiness in our ordinance over accessory structures. Agricultural districts, we have applied the same regulations to agricultural districts as all residential districts or business districts that allow residences. But Code of Virginia restricts how we can regulate farm structures. The building code does not apply to farm structures, and they do not require a building permit. And so whether we're even allowed to regulate them, I'm not sure. But we do ask for setbacks, and so far anybody who's come in for a permit has been more than happy to abide by the conditions, but it's not completely clear to me if we're allowed to regulate structures the way, our accessory structures the way that we do on a farm.
You are allowed to regulate placement, just not the use.
Right.
So you could, but I guess adding to what you're saying, for a big farm somewhere, they're gonna have a barn in the middle of a field, which is clearly an accessory structure, right? Kind of getting to what you were saying, Mr. Lidding. So I do think with the new UDO, we would need to distinguish agricultural structures from other structures.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to answer the question here, should regulations be the same in all districts? I mean, I think each district's unique in itself, and so we got to look at each one of them. Wouldn't treat
Absolutely.
a residential scenario like we just spoke of as compared to a business or industrial. So, yeah, to answer that, and myself personally, yeah, you need to keep them unique to themselves.
I agree.
When we look at our residential districts, you know, we saw the two accessory structures in that example earlier. This is my favorite, one of my favorite buildings in all of Wytheville, and it's
It's great.
it's a garden shed.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's got the picket fence and the little garden, and it just looks like a storybook. You know, I expect a leprechaun to live in there or something. But then we've got one here that's sitting in a side yard, and something for me to research and see how long it's been there and whether it has a permit or not. But, you know, so each of these situations are a little different. There's concerns about, you know, the materials that are used, and, you know, if we look at manufactured homes, we're pretty specific on where they can go and what conditions and what types of manufactured homes, but garden sheds, I don't know, how strict do we want to be? In business districts, our B1, B2, and M1 districts use the exact same language for regulating accessory structures as in R1, R2, and R3. And it's kind of wonky because in precedent on developing and reviewing site plans, if you go up to the Sheetz store, they've got an accessory structure there, which is a car wash, and another accessory structure, which is a canopy. One's in the side yard and one's in the front yard.
So how did that happen?
How does that happen? It happens because that's exactly the way commercial development happens. And I think what's happened is they grabbed those regulations from the residential zoning because you can also build a single-family home in a B1 or B2 or M1. And so they want those standards to be there for that, except they never specified that part. So technically, these are a violation of the zoning ordinance because I don't think they were intended to regulate that, but it's a problem with the current language. And
Yeah.
probably one that we haven't really resolved with the new proposals for the UDO.
And that's why I think they all have to be different, from residential to agricultural to business. We have to have them all separate, I'd say, to, because it's crazy that that should be allowed anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that is a normal way that you would
Right.
set up a car wash at a gas station. It's probably not going to be physically attached.
Are you saying at a gas station in general, or if we want to refer to this one, is the canopy structure an accessory?
Yeah.
So
I don't know what else you'd call it.
So it
All
would
across
technically need to go in the back of the store?
The way the ordinance is written.
That's what I'm saying.
Now,
Like,
nobody in the office back here is regulating it that way,
right.
but
And that's probably smart, but
Yeah.
it's not right, but
No.
it's,
Yeah.
we need the ordinance to agree with how we want to.
Right. Common sense,
I
for sure.
think when we look at the residential aspect, we're thinking of a nuisance to the neighbor, but you really don't have that much in the business and industrial.
Right.
It needs to be, I guess every business is different, where they need structures, where they need car washes, where they need outbuildings and multiple garages or whatever. And most of the time you look at them and it doesn't look out of place.
Right.
But I wouldn't.
But then there are some other examples where that same Lowe's cheap shed goes behind a fast food joint up against the interstate.
And that's, I guess, where I went back to, are you suggesting permanent foundation to distinguish some of these lesser structures, if you want to call them that?
We just got to ask the question, how strictly do we want to regulate it?
Because what about a car wash itself? Is that accessory structure? If
If it's a standalone car wash, that's the only thing that site is used for, then no, that's the primary structure.
primary structure.
But in this case, clearly Sheets is
Sure.
the primary, and the fact that they've got a building with a car wash in it is an accessory use.
Right.
The one way we can potentially address business and industrial districts is to say that the accessory structures would be approved during the site review part of the permitting process. Because that allows the flexibility of the site designer to place it in a way that's reasonable for the business, but it have a plan and a layout and meets for a minimum separation and your access requirements and those sorts. So that's one of the things John and I have been talking about behind the scenes. So if that's an approach that you like, that would help with those two districts.
I think I definitely like that. Absolutely. Because otherwise, I mean, what's in the existing ordinances, I mean, these structures shouldn't be built, but how are you
Sorry.
gonna enforce that?
Time's up, Schmidt.
All right. I'll stop right there.
No, we're just joking with you. Okay, what else, John? It's getting late.
There's no time limit.
All right, well, if I get any more emails, you're going to hear another chime. I turned that off once, but it
Is it your wife sending you the email?
probably. All right. Another example from an industrial, out here at the industrial park, this is the Frito-Lay distribution facility. That accessory, it's a very nice shed, but it's still a shed. It's a metal shed. Very much in the front of, that is the main thing you see from the road. For the primary structure behind it is in the back,
It's non-conforming.
definitely. And then we have the examples here. Both of these are on corner lots. Now, both of these sheds, this is a new one which has been installed within the last 3 or 4 months. And the other one has been here for who knows how long. These are in backyards, on narrow lots, along a corner. And so both of these are fully in the rear yard. They are both meet all of the minimum setbacks from adjoining properties and from the street, even though, you know, it looks like they're very close. These particular lots are narrow enough that they fall under that 5-foot minimum side yard rule. And so these are all compliant, and yet it's hard to imagine them more in a front yard than what you see. And so it's the irony of our ordinance that you can have a backyard shed that is as closer to the street than something put in a normal front yard. And how we address that, I don't know. Require a screen fence for that lower option. The one at the top, you know, the building itself isn't that bad looking, but the way it sits on the side is going to be hard to drive into that right-hand roll-up door to
Really
park a
hard.
vehicle or something. But good for a lawnmower.
Is that on a larger lot, that one there, John, or is it on a small lot?
It is a 50-foot wide lot, and so this has that 5-foot side yard setback
Okay.
standard.
Awful big building for a small lot.
It is. Now, it's a deep lot,
Right,
and so it's deep enough that it still doesn't pass that
25%.
25% rule. It still qualifies.
Right.
So, the what's next, one idea that I had, this is that last slide and this one got deleted out, or they didn't get put in the original packet. I printed them wrong somewhere along the line. But my thought was that we could take something like our fence ordinance map and develop something that defines areas where accessory structures could be placed, that maybe recognizes that some of those bigger side yards could be appropriate for structures, particularly if they're screened by a privacy fence, or if, like you say, they're on a permanent foundation and more fully developed. It's going to take some word crafting to come up with the language to actually regulate that, but
It definitely is, because like I said, all the lots are different, you know, from corners to regular lots to tiny lots to some of those other lots you're showing us. So, you know, it is going to take some crafting there for sure.
I have been happy in the last 2 weeks. All of the accessory structure permit applications have been simple in normal lots, but we had a run there where none of them were easy.
Right. All in the rear yard.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've run late. We did not get to R3, but I'm presuming we're ready to call it.
Let's keep going. No, I'm joking.
Would the planning commission like for Mr. Woods to take a stab at some draft language for accessory structures in the different zone districts?
Yes,
For the
ma'am.
new UDO?
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
So maybe what we'll do at the next meeting is we'll do R3 first, and then go into that topic again.
All right.
With the accessory structures, again, just getting back to, will you be looking at having the garages separate as accessory structure? Is that
Well,
what?
my sense is that that's where you would like to go, so
I mean, I think so. I don't know. What do you think, Brad? I mean,
what I'm thinking right now is that if we were to look at larger garages, and I don't know if I've picked out anything else yet, but things that are on a permanent foundation and whatnot, as something that could be approved in a side yard. Otherwise, it would need to be, it could be in a side yard if it were behind a privacy fence, so that you've got
right.
a screen.
Sure.
And then at the same time, we would better define what a rear yard is. Side yard and a
Okay.
front yard. So I don't know that we've done that, have we, with the new UDO?
I don't know that we have.
With maybe some images and.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we're not doing this. Okay. Is there any further discussion or questions for Mr. Woods before we adjourn? Okay. If not, the Planning Commission is adjourned. The Planning Commission meeting is adjourned at 7:56.